Hi guys, it's Megan here, the faithful fibromyalgia warrior, making this video clip with a new streaming recording service, which is hopefully going to go well. StreamYard, which I know a lot of people are using currently. Definitely a much smoother process than what I was doing before. Welcome to my office slash studio slash bedroom. One room that has multiple, functionalities in the daytime. So what I wanted to talk about today is how I was able to come off all of my medications after going carnivore. And I just want to start this by saying, first, make this perfectly clear. This is by no means medical advice, okay? I am not a doctor, a consultant, a nurse practitioner. I am not anybody in the medical field. So please do not take what I've done as official medical advice. And also I want to add that there are some medications that are much easier to come off of, and there are others that are much more difficult. And in fact, if you are looking to come off of them, you absolutely should speak to a medical professional in any case, okay, to let them know this is what you're doing, of course. But certain medications, you absolutely have to be in touch with your medical provider, whether that's a GP, family doctor, whether that is a nurse practitioner, whether that is perhaps a holistic health practitioner, whether that is somebody who's a consultant or a specialist like a cardiologist or an oncologist, depending on what you're dealing with, you need to speak to them. What I'm referring to is the stuff that I was on, which was pain medication for fibromyalgia, which is gabapentin, cocodamol, which is also known as Tylenol 3s with codeine in North America for my back pain. And I was also taking statins for my cholesterol. I was taking levothyroxine for my underactive thyroid. Those are the medications I'm referring to. And I was on sertraline as an antidepressant. I was not on any sort of antipsychotics, which I know some people with things like bipolar and schizophrenia are put onto. So if you're hoping to come off of those things, you have to work with your practitioner. Please hear me. Don't just cut them out cold turkey. Don't cut out medications cold turkey anyways, but definitely it's medications like that. You need to speak to a medical professional. They need to be aware of what you're doing so that if you try to cut back too much too soon, they can be there to help you, because there are implications if you do that, especially with things like antipsychotics. There's a reason why you take them. I say that not with any sort of judgment whatsoever. You take them for a reason, because you need them. And therefore, please work with your practitioner about how to wean off of them very, 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 very slowly, if that is something you're interested in doing. Other medications that I cannot speak to are things like insulin. If you're a type 1 diabetic, you need to speak with your doctor or specialist, because it's very nuanced as far as figuring out how much insulin you're going to need if you're looking to go low carb, keto, or carnivore. If you're a type 1 diabetic, it doesn't mean it can't be done. And there are quite a few people in this amazing community who are doing it. Look at some of the videos out there. I think with Dr. Carnivore's got some about type 1 diabetics, certainly about type 2 diabetics. I know Bart Kay has spoken about the significance of the Randall cycle and being a type 1 diabetic as well on his channel. Dr. Ben Bickman, I believe, speaks in some of his content about the possibility of a type 1 diabetic following this way of life, but that extra measures and precautions are needed, okay? Because, again, you're in a situation where your body simply either has a non-functioning pancreas, full stop, or it functions but very, very minimally, and that's why you're on insulin. And so that's a whole other set of precautions you need to take that I will not pretend I am an expert in any way, and therefore I am not going to suggest that you try to stop taking your insulin if you decide you want to try low carb, keto, or carnivore. Okay, please hear me. I'm not saying that whatsoever. Additionally, there are some people out there who are on specific heart medications, whether it is blood pressure medication or well, mostly that's it. Blood pressure medication is the big one. Whether you have cardiovascular disease of some sort, or you may have even had a cardiac event. You may have had a heart attack. This does not mean you cannot try a keto, carnivore, or even just a low carb diet. In fact, if you were to go and check out the content of the videos that Dr. Philip Ovadia has put on YouTube, he is a cardiothoracic surgeon who is also carnivore. If you check out the videos and the content that has been put out by Dr. Anthony Chafee, for example, you will find, and they not only speak to the anecdotal evidence, but they also speak to the scientific evidence where this way of eating is very, very therapeutic for people who are at risk of heart conditions or disease, or have actually had a heart attack or some sort of cardio event. My husband, for example, had a myocardial infarction in August of 2021. He is now very much on a keto diet, and it has improved his health significantly. Now, he still has to take the blood thinning medication and the blood pressure medication. He still has healing to do. And I am not going to tell him to stop taking those medications. That is between him and his cardiologist to discuss. But it is potentially possible that he may be able to come off of those over time. The other thing I want to make really, really clear is that carnivore can get you to the point where you can come off of your medications, but don't rush it. Okay? You may have been taking minimal medication. Maybe you were taking a low level of antidepressants, in which case, perhaps 3 or even 6 months into carnivore, you may have had enough healing where you feel like you can start weaning yourself off. But if you're at high amounts of antidepressants, like I was, if you're on major doses of pain medication, don't feel bad if you're only 30 days, 60 days, 90 days in, and you don't feel like you're quite at a place where you can come off your medications yet. That's okay. Your body may still be getting rid of a lot of inflammation and need to do a lot of healing. And as long as you're carrying around inflammation in your body, you're going to have pain. That's what the constant and chronic inflammation does, is it creates chronic pain through the body. So for me, within the first 6 months of being carnivore, I did lose 100 pounds, which is amazing, which is fantastic. My brain fog was almost fully gone. A lot of my pain and inflammation had been reduced, but I still took my medications for over the next 2.5 years, faithfully. I didn't stop any of my medications then because I was still healing. I was still dealing with inflammation. And the reason I knew that was because I was still losing weight. I still had weight coming off. I was still finding that my bloating was still a factor. Although I was feeling better, my hair was still falling out. My eyebrows were still thin. My eyelashes still hadn't grown back in. So I wasn't fully healed yet. I was still healing. And I kind of figured out at that stage that as long as I wasn't weight stable, as long as I was still having areas that needed healing, I was still inflamed. Way less than I was before, without a doubt. The inflammation was down significantly. However, it was still there, and it wasn't the time for me to try to start coming off my medications. And I struggled with that because I saw all these people in the YouTube space who talked about reducing inflammation, coming off their medications within months of going carnivore. And I had to accept that That's great. And I was absolutely thrilled for them. But I also knew I wasn't there yet. And that's okay. And so as I share what I did do, I just want to make it really, really clear that I didn't just go carnivore and within 6 months I lost the weight, everything was better, and I got off my medications. That didn't happen with me. That might happen with you. Okay. But for me, it would take me until my 3rd year of carnivore before I was actually at a place where the inflammation was down enough and the pain was down enough. I was ready to see if maybe I could manage with a little bit less pain medication. And I would say to anybody who's at that stage and you want to try to come off of your medications, and we're not talking like blood thinners, blood pressure medications. We're not talking about the antipsychotic medications that you may need. I mean, not all medication is wrong or bad. In fact, the way I look at it is, honestly, God created the scientists who invented these medications. And so if we need them to stabilize our moods and our cholesterol and everything else for a certain period of time, for a certain season, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean we're broken. It means we need a little help until we can get the rest of our bodies in place. So I understood. I had come to realize a couple things. One, I had to heal as much as I possibly could with nutrition first. I had to fix my nutrition first. Then I was able to start to heal, get my brain back, and heal my faith with God. And why do I say that's important? Well, okay, so for me, I'm a Christian. My walk with God is super important to me. But even if you're not a Christian, even if you believe in some other higher power, having something greater than ourselves through meditation, through some sort of prayer, through journaling, whatever it is, that is what's going to help us through the mental aspect of the physical healing. Because again, our bodies are not simply just physical beings. There's the emotional and mental aspect as well. And if we don't have something we can look to and rely on, and again, for me, that is a faith in God and Jesus, but that doesn't have to be you. So if you're, whatever your faith is in, whether it's in nature, whether it's in, maybe you're Hindu or Muslim or Jewish or Buddhist or atheist even, but you accept that there's something greater than you, something outside of your own control that you can look to, whatever that might be, whatever the teaching or practices are, whether it's deep breathing, whether it's saying, wow, look at all the creation of nature out there. That's great. Regardless of who you believe created it, looking to something greater than yourselves is important, because if we don't have that, if it all comes down to us, and if it's all about what we did or what we can do, then what happens when we realize that everything we did and everything we're doing isn't working? Well, then what? How do we get to that next stage? Right? So that's why I say that we are beings that have a physical makeup, and that's a large part of it, but we also have to have something more spiritual and faith-based, whatever that faith might be in, greater than ourselves, that we can turn to help us through the mental and emotional challenges that come with making physical changes and health changes, right? So that's a big part of it. So just, if I could say this a little bit here, you have to go super, 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 super slow. Okay. Whether you are hoping to come off of heart medications, antipsychotics at some point, again, with the help, advice, and support of your specialist or practitioner, whether that be a nurse practitioner, a family doctor, GP, if you're working with an actual specialist like a cardiologist or an oncologist, if you're, say, dealing with cancer. Okay, if you want to try to reduce or even come off of some of your medications, you have to work with these people, because what they've prescribed to you, the dosages is based on your weight at the time, your level of activity, and other factors like that. So you have to let them know what you're doing. You can't just randomly just cut the stuff out. You're going to have withdrawal. You're going to feel sick. You're going to feel weak. You could have tremors, and it's awful and it's horrible, and it's not good. It's dangerous, especially if we're talking like antipsychotics. Okay. That doesn't mean you will have to take them forever. In fact, you may very well be able to come off of them, especially if you're already on a path to healing your nutrition. Right, especially if you've already cut out like seed oils and highly processed sugars and crap and junk food, as well as cutting back on your carbohydrates, or perhaps you're already carnivore and you've cut out all the carbs to begin with. That's awesome. Seriously, that's amazing. That is not easy, as we know. That's not easy. If you're there already, fantastic. If you're not there yet, but you want to get there, well done. That is great. But get the nutrition right first, because your body's going to need all the protein and especially the healthy fats to fuel the brain, to get the body healing, so that you can hopefully need less and less and less of your medication. Okay. Which I know seems straightforward and obvious, but it shocked me how obvious it was, and how much I didn't get that until after I was 6 months into carnivore. Okay. Sometimes the things that are the most obvious are the things that we have the hardest time seeing. Don't know why, but it's true. So if you are already on your way to being, at the very least, low carb, maybe even keto, or especially helpful if you are full out carnivore. Not everyone has to be carnivore. That's what I do, because I have to, because I have IBS, because I have gut issues, because I have food sensitivities. Plants are out. Other than the hot water that touches coffee, that passes over the coffee grinds, I do not consume plants of any sort. I just don't, because I can't. Because it totally screws up my skin, and it screws up my gut and my digestion, and it affects so many other things. It causes inflammation and pain, and my arthritis comes back. So I don't have any at all. If you can have them and you thrive, fantastic, do it. Once your nutrition has been fixed and you are at a place where you are being healed by your nutrition instead of being hurt by it, because let's be honest, everything we eat, every food, because not everything is technically really food, but everything we eat either helps us and heals us, or ends up hurting us. Okay? So we want to get that cleaned up. Once you are on a path where your diet is that which is healing you and helping you, and you're feeling less inflammation, and you feel like your brain fog has disappeared, and you're having more energy even, and you want to try to come off your medications, please start slowly. Okay. Here's what I did. So I was taking cocodamol, which is what they give you here in the UK for chronic pain. Okay. Because I suffered a back injury in 2014. They gave me cocodamol, which is equivalent to, in the UK, it's equivalent to, or in North America, is equivalent to taking Tylenol 3s with codeine. I took 2 tablets at a time, 4 times a day, which is the maximum dose allowed. At one point, they were willing to offer me morphine, but because of my IBS being so bad, I refused to go on it. Thank goodness. Okay, so I was taking that for the back pain. They also started me on gabapentin for the fibromyalgia pain because it is supposed to work to block the nerve signals from the brain to the body. I was on 700 milligrams 3 times a day. Also, the maximum dose allowed. I was taking 200 milligrams of sertraline every day for my depression. I was also taking, what was it? I think it was 80 milligrams of statin every evening for my high cholesterol, which, by the way, has no effect on triglycerides. And that's usually the bigger concern, is when the triglycerides are super high, along with low HDL and high LDL, then that becomes what's really concerning to doctors. Okay. And I was taking 50 micrograms of levothyroxine every day for my thyroid. That's everything I was taking. When I had reached 3 years carnivore, so that would have been end of July last year, I realized that I maybe didn't need to take quite as much of the pain medication as I had been. And the reason I found that out was because I had more and more times, especially when we went back to Canada for holiday, with the time change and not having medication taken at the exact same time there as I would have here, I found that if I had my medications delayed by an hour or so, I felt kind of okay. And even though I wasn't stopping anything just yet, I did find, surprisingly, that if my medications were delayed more so, and again, this is more so to do with the gabapentin and the cocodamol, if my medication dosage was delayed by an hour or two, it did not make me feel any worse. It was kind of one of those, okay, and I filed that away for future reference. But the other thing I realized was that I had to start correcting my posture. That on our flight back home, when I had no choice, in the upright position, I had to sit with my shoulders back and my legs flat, my feet flat on the floor with my back straight. I had to practice proper posture. And even though my muscles were achy, they weren't the inflamed soreness that I would associate with fibromyalgia. And I kind of understood at that point that if I want to eventually be able to walk without pain, I have to be able to do that by walking correctly, not slouched over, not wearing high heels or wedges, standing with my spine straight, with my shoulders back, with my pelvis and my hips tucked kind of under as I walked. And I had to actually practice doing this because I have been, ever since I was a child, and I remember my mother always telling me, sit up straight, sit up straight. I was always a sloucher. I always sat with bad posture. I would read curled up, kind of twisted in a chair with my knees up and my shoulders hunched over a book, which is obviously not good. And after injuring my back, the automatic response is to curl into ourselves to protect the injured area. And so I started to hunch over so much that I could no longer straighten up. I was so inflamed and my mobility was so affected that I couldn't sit up straight or walk straight. I always walked hunched over. I needed a crutch to keep from falling over and losing my balance, which is never a good place to be, by the way. But I had to start super slow. So before I even really started to come off of my medications, I had to actually start teaching my muscles to hold my spine correctly. After years, like 7, 8 years of bad posture, Because what happens over time is the more we stand, with our shoulders rolled up and hunched over, that's how our spine's going to end up staying. Our spine will start to slowly curve over time, and that's how we're going to end up stuck. So when you see some of these elderly people with the rounded shoulders and hunched over, it's because they walked or stood or sat for so long with bad posture that their spines adjusted over time to where they could no longer stand up straight. Even if they wanted to, they wouldn't be able to do it, because the body will adjust to what we train it to do. And I didn't want to stay like that. So I had to retrain myself. I had to retrain my body into correct posture. And it's not like you do this one time and it's done. It took me doing this repeatedly. And I still do this every single morning. I would stand kind of in the door frame, open the door, and I'd stand up against the frame, the wooden trim of the door frame. And I would stand with my heels pushed right back, with my hips back against the door frame edge, and tuck in my spine, like straighten my spine, tuck in my pelvis, roll back my shoulders. And I was so unused to it. It did hurt. It did hurt. And I could only do it for a few seconds. That's okay. That might be where you start. I could only stand up for like maybe 10 seconds. And then I would have to relax. So I would do it again, 10 seconds. And I share this because even if that's all you can do, it's a start. It's better than nothing. And if you do it enough times over time, and you do it for a little bit longer, gradually, you're eventually going to retrain your spine to be straight. You're going to retrain your body into good posture. And you're going to help take the pressure off of your lower back and off your shoulders and off your neck as you get your body used to good posture once again. And that doesn't mean like I'm completely there now. Sometimes I find I'm slouching, I'll get comfortable and I notice, I'm slouching. And what I found most difficult was to stand right in front of the sofa with my shoulders back and my hips under and good posture. And then to keep that posture, you pull your stomach in, you tuck your pelvis under, keep your shoulders back, and then to lower myself onto the sofa and to then sit there with proper posture and hold it. Because my body was so used to just going into a slouch, into a slump. That didn't help. Okay. Over time, it just made my injuries and everything worse. And sometimes I get sore and my back will be a bit achy and my muscles will be a bit achy. But that's different from the sharp burning pain of fibromyalgia, just to let you guys know. And that's what I did for several months. Okay, so 2022, we went to Canada on holiday. And when I came back, that's what I started to do. Okay, most days. So I'd get up in the morning, I'd stand up in the doorway, I would stretch out my spine, I would even lift my arms up like this, hold it for a count of 5 to 10, and that was it. That's all I could do. Go sit. And then maybe a few hours later, try it again. And I'm sharing this because I don't want anyone to feel like, I've got to be able to have perfect posture and I can stretch and I'm going to be walking and doing all these things like right away. I wasn't like at all. And in the fall of 2022, I did that every morning. I was still on my medications, by the way. Okay, because here's the thing, is if I couldn't even do that on my medications, then I knew I wasn't quite ready there. I wasn't quite ready yet. All right. And I wanted to see how I would feel doing these things while still on my meds before I made any kind of attempt to come off of my medication. That's just me. Maybe that might not be you, but that was me. And so I had to build up. I mean, like almost microscopic steps, to the point where I actually felt better. It's like, oh, I can sit with my shoulders back and my head neutral and my spine kind of tucked whilst I'm sitting, because I'm training my muscles to hold my body in the correct position. And it's going to be a bit sore because for almost 10 years, I was sitting with bad posture. I was in pain from my injury, and I was trying to curl up in myself. And it took time, and I was still sore, but that's going to happen when we look to retrain our muscles. Okay, the thing called muscle memory, it's real. It's a thing. I had to retrain my muscles to do something that I had not asked them to do in almost 10 years. Okay, and that was to hold my spine and my skeleton in correct position. And if you're like me and you're notoriously a sloucher, sitting with your legs crossed all the time, constantly, oh, there's my puppy. Hello, Birdie. Constantly, keeping like, for example, holding my mobile phone under my ear instead of holding it with my hand, or scrunching up my neck on the sofa, or, just sitting awkwardly when I'm reading, watching videos, whatever. We all do stuff like that, right? And so it takes time to retrain the muscles. And some people can retrain their muscles quickly, and maybe they can get themselves back into a good position in a few weeks. For me, I was busy trying to retrain my muscles for 6 months, for a good 6 months. Okay, so it wasn't until, what was it, maybe January of 2023, where I had the realization that, wait a sec, now that I'm working on my posture, maybe I can also practice standing, not just against the wall, but standing up in the shower. Because up until this point, I needed a special bath chair that would sit over the tub that I would sit in to take a shower. I mean, for a good year and a half before COVID, I had to have a care person come in and help me out by washing my hair and helping me get clean, washing my body, washing my hair, helping me get dressed, because I was in that much pain. That's how bad the inflammation was. Okay. And of course, they couldn't come during COVID. Luckily, my husband worked from home, and so if I needed help, he was there. But I wanted to get out of the chair completely. I wanted to be able to, which seems like a silly, ridiculous thing, but I wanted to get back to being able to stand up and take a shower as a shower and not have to sit down for it. And so I just remember I would start in the shower seat, and then I would try standing up just for a minute or so, not in the seat, to see how I felt. And it gave me a chance to roll back my shoulders, stretch out my spine, tuck in my lower back and my pelvis. And what I found was it didn't hurt. In fact, it felt pretty great being able to stand up and take a shower like I used to. And again, at this point, I am still taking all my medications. Okay. But it was once I started regularly standing in the shower without the chair at all. In fact, I got rid of the seat. I think it was right around March or April of last year. So about a year ago, I got rid of the bath seat. But it was after I had been doing my standing spine stretches and standing in the shower and practicing sitting with proper posture for longer and longer periods of time, that I realized, you know what? maybe now is when I can start coming off some of these medications, because I was still having a bit of a zombie-like feeling from the meds. The first thing I realized I wanted to cut out was the cocodamol. Okay. Mainly because I realized, first of all, the disc injury had healed. I didn't actually have an injury there any longer. And so I didn't need to take the cocodamol, and the codeine definitely can cause constipation. And if for somebody who has that type of IBS, like I did, it makes it that much worse. So I knew if I could cut down and cut out the cocodamol, get the codeine out of my system, that would also help ease some of the IBS symptoms, and then just be nice to come off of that stuff. Okay. Here's what I did. I started out by taking my 2 pills in the morning at the usual time and the 2 pills at lunch at the usual time. I delayed the dinner pills by an hour or so, and then I only took 1 before bed to see how I would feel the next day. I did that for a couple of days. Didn't feel any worse. So I gradually got down to taking 2 in the morning, 2 at lunch, 2 right around dinner, and then 1 at night only if I felt like I needed it. And the amazing thing was, I noticed that after a few days, I didn't really feel like I needed as much at night. So I was down to 2 in the morning, 2 at lunch, 2 kind of in between dinner and bedtime. And did that for a couple days. And then I tried cutting it down to 2 in the morning, 2 kind of between lunch and dinner, and then 2 before bed. Again, for a few days. So I've gone now from taking 2 of them 4 times a day. I've worked my way down to taking 2 3 times a day. And I don't remember if it was anything specific, but I just kind of thought to myself, well, if I can do 2 3 times a day, maybe I can delay the morning one, get it closer to lunchtime, take 2 kind of closer to dinner, and then see how I feel if I can get through having none at night. But if I feel really bad, then I'll take some if I need to. And so I tried that. And imagine my delight and surprise when I didn't feel worse right away. Now, I was still taking everything else, okay? Sorry, other than my statins. In March of 2023, my blood work had been within normal range. It was optimal based on the tests I got the year or 2 before. And based on some of the side effects of statins and the fact that really there was no benefit to me at that point, I let my GP know that, hey, I want to come off the statins. What do I do? To which I was told, you know what, you just don't have to take them. We can revisit in a year and see where you're at. But for right now, yeah, you just don't have to take them. So those I stopped immediately. Okay. No side effects. So that was easy. But for me, the biggest struggle was the pain pills at that point. So here I was now taking 2 cocodamol kind of before lunch and seeing how long I could go before I needed the next 2. And quite often I would go all the way up until bedtime. And I tried for a couple of days to come down to just 2 tablets kind of mid-morning and nothing else. But I did feel the effects of that. So I went back to 2 mid-morning and 2 before bed. And I kind of rocked that for about a week or so. And I don't know exactly what it was that changed specifically, but I was finding that actually I could get through with taking 2 of the cocodamols kind of just after lunch and then nothing the rest of the day. So I was down to 2 pills once a day. So then I thought, okay, well, this is good. Maybe I can try to come off the gabapentin as well. And I did that super, super slow. So I did 700 milligrams 3 times a day. So 700 in the morning, 700 around lunchtime, and I cut down to 600 around dinner time or early evening. And I kept it like that for several days. I didn't notice any negative effects. So I then did 700, then 700, 600, 600 for a few days, for a couple of days to see how I felt. Again, no negative effects. So after a few days, I was at 600, 600, 600. And by that point, I was also just down to 1 cocodamol tablet in the evening to help me get through the night and sleep better. That was all I was taking. Okay. So I rocked the 666 of the gabapentin and the 1 pill of cocodamol for probably another week or so. And then I finally went, okay, let me just get rid of all the cocodamol now. Let's see what happens. So I was still doing 600 of gabapentin 3 times a day and no cocodamol. And I did not feel any worse. I stayed about the same. I didn't necessarily feel like, oh my gosh, I feel amazing and refreshed, but I didn't feel any worse. And for me, that was my basis of how I judge things. Okay. And so I thought, wow, I'm not feeling any worse. The real zombie-like effect comes from the gabapentin because it's a nerve blocker. And it affects the way the brain signals the body as far as pain being there or not. So it does have a neurological effect. So I knew I had to take my time really slowly. So I decided to try 600 in the morning, 300 at lunch, 600 in the evening. See what happened. And I did that for a couple of days. And I could tell that I was coming off the meds a bit, but it wasn't really massive. Like it wasn't so bad that I couldn't carry on, which is great. So I thought, okay, we'll do that. Oh, there's Birdie. Try that for a few days. See how I feel. And then I'm going to try to come off even more. And so every few days, I would reduce it by just a little bit more. So I was doing 6 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon, 3 in the evening. And I did have a bit of a headache. So I tried 3 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon, 6 at night. And that seemed to have a bit of a better effect for a couple of days. And I don't know, maybe my body was getting used to not having it in the system, because after a few days, I was down to 3 in the morning, 3 at lunchtime, 3 in the evening. No cocodamol and no statins. Thank goodness. Okay, so I carried on kind of slowly reducing it over the next week or two from there. Until I was finally having I think I did nothing in the morning, 300 milligrams at lunchtime, and nothing in the evening. And that final 300 was really the hardest. It was definitely the most difficult one to let go of. When I first tried to get rid of that final 300 milligrams of gabapentin, I did feel a bit of withdrawal symptoms. I did feel slightly nauseous. And so I quickly went back on it for a couple of days. I tried again. I don't know what changed exactly, but I did feel much better. Okay. And I found that, in fact, for whatever reason, I don't know what the difference was. I was eating a bit more dietary fat. Maybe that helped. Possibly. I was making sure I was staying away from leaner cuts of meat. So that might have been what gave me the headache to begin with. I don't know. But after a few days, I tried again of taking no gabapentin. I had now come off of I had come fully off cocodamol. I was taking no more gabapentin. And this was by the end of March of 2023. And by the first week of April, so Easter of last year, I was off all my statins, which was easy. I was off all my pain medications, which is amazing. The next thing I weaned myself off of was my antidepressants. And the reason why was because, to be quite frank with you, I was told sertraline would also help me with my anxiety, but it had no effect at all. It had zero effect on my anxiety, which was really the driving factor. So I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety and depression in 2012. But it was the anxiety that was the driver for the bulimia, for the manic episodes, for the stress, for a lot of which triggered the depression, and also kept my IBS flared up, did not help with my fibromyalgia, did not help with my Raynaud's or any of the other things that were triggered by it. So I knew I had to do something and manage the anxiety, of course, but the depression was fairly mild. And so taking the sertraline, because I was hoping it was going to help fix the anxiety, it didn't make sense for me to keep taking it in my mind. But I didn't want to just stop dead, right? I knew I couldn't just stop cold, because that's not good either. So again, I was at 200 milligrams a day. So when I first decided I was going to come off of that, I cut my dosage to 150 milligrams. And I did that for about 4 or 5 days. Didn't feel any worse, felt pretty good. So then I tried taking 100 milligrams, and I did that for a few days. Felt pretty great. Then I brought that down to 50 milligrams for over a few days period, and then just completely got it out of my system. And I did not have withdrawals, thankfully. I know some people can. I was lucky I didn't. But I was able to, by the end of April of 2023, I was completely off my antidepressants, pain medications, fibromyalgia medications, and my statins. And as far as my thyroid medication, that was actually by pure accident. I forgot to put in my repeat order. So when I ran out at the end of April, I had forgotten to order more. And I just had a few days where I didn't have any, so I couldn't take anything. And I knew it was going to be at least 5 days before the prescription could be filled. So I just figured, well, there's no withdrawal from it. I'm feeling better. My metabolism is improving. I've been doing this now for just about 3 years. So let me just see if this is even needed. Because the thyroid hormones control everything from the reproductive organs and things like building hair and nails. It helps with your metabolism and your digestion, your skin, all that sort of thing is all all controlled by thyroid hormones. So even though levothyroxine was upping my thyroid hormones, doesn't mean they were actually being used optimally. And I suspect, in fact, they probably weren't, because I still had inflammation and healing to do. So I just never bothered to order more levothyroxine. And again, it's a microdose that I was taking. And I have not had issues ever since. Okay. As far as hypothyroidism has been reversed. I know this is an extra long video, guys, and I appreciate your patience in sticking with me. I definitely didn't want to make you guys feel like I was talking down to you in any way, because I'm absolutely not. These are just the things that I did that happened to work for me. I guess overall, my suggestion and my recommendation is first of all, figure out if you're just newly on this journey of carnivore, keto, or low carb, if you're still losing weight, for example, if you're still finding that you have pain, but that it's kind of reducing, in other words, if you're still feeling like you're dealing with inflammation and pain, I would suggest that you still have healing to do. And therefore, you may want to just stay on your medications for now to help you as you heal with managing your pain. And if you're at a place where you've been doing this for more than 90 days and perhaps your healing is coming, to a place of being healed instead of healing, then you might be ready to look at coming off your medications. But please, 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 especially the medications I've already highlighted, like blood pressure and blood thinning medications for heart conditions or heart disease. Please, please do not stop taking those just out of nowhere. Okay. You definitely can still do a low carb keto or even a carnivore diet. Even with that history, you can still do it. Even if you have no gallbladder, by the way, you can still do it. It might take you a little longer and it might take extra steps, but it is doable. But please work with your cardiologist or your specialist or your family doctor to look at ways you can reduce and maybe eventually come off those medications. If you are taking antipsychotics, if you're dealing with a significant mental health issue like schizophrenia or bipolar or even severe ADHD, please don't stop taking the medications without speaking to your healthcare professional, because obviously they know you better than I do. And a lot of those medications, the amounts are based on your current weight, your lifestyle, your whatever, other factors that I don't know anything about, and that they can help you reduce the amount slowly as you improve your health. Same thing goes if you're a type 1 diabetic. Please, please, please do not just stop taking your insulin. Not that I'm saying you guys would, but if you're looking to maybe use less insulin, you're going to have to figure out how to calculate for that if you're having significantly less carbohydrates in your diet. It does not mean that you cannot, but you absolutely have to work with your healthcare provider, doctor, nurse, specialist, whatever it might be. Okay, because I don't want anybody having severe medical issues because they try to cut out medications, some of which are life-saving. Okay, especially if you're a type 1 diabetic. If you're a type 2 diabetic and you're not yet on insulin, and let's say you are taking metformin, well, start reducing your carbohydrates. You can go low carb, keto, or even full carnivore. My husband is doing that. And you will gradually be able to reduce the amount of metformin you take, and you can probably stop taking it altogether. But again, you probably want to let your healthcare professional know, by the way, I'm going to be going on a very low carb diet, which if you're a type 2 diabetic, that should be thrilling news to your healthcare professional, okay? Because that is the main reason why you have developed type 2 diabetes in the first place. You tell them you're going on a super low carb diet. You can tell them keto or carnivore if you want. Some of them may not have even heard of it, but if you just tell them, I'm going to be going on a very low carb diet, I need help adjusting my metformin levels, do that. And as you start to lose the weight and get your insulin and your blood glucose under control, you will, I would imagine, in pretty much every case, be able to come right off of metformin and completely reverse type 2 diabetes just through your diet before it becomes full-blown needing insulin or anything worse than that. It can happen. Trust me, it can be done. But that's what I've done. These are the things that I've done. And please, I hope, after all my yammering on, what I do hope that you guys might get out of this is even the tiniest of tiny baby steps can make a difference. Oh, sorry about that. So, for example, I had to get my nutrition right first. Second, I had to start practicing proper posture and doing the gentle stretching that was going to help my body get stronger in the correct way long before I started to increase my mobility and my range of motion and come off my medication. So there is definitely a progress. And if you get the nutrition right and you follow that with just, again, simple stretches that will absolutely help you long term to get range of motion and improve your mobility, do that. And there is no competition. There is no race. You don't have to prove anything to anybody. Remember, you're doing this because you want to have healing. You want the nutrition that you consume to be healing and not harmful. And every little bit of movement you can accomplish. You don't have to go to the gym and press weights in the beginning. If, if all you can do is sit up straight on the sofa or on a chair and hold that correct posture for 30 seconds, 2 or 3 times a day, it still adds up and it still helps and it can still matter. I'm nothing spectacular or awesome. I mean, if you guys think I am, thank you, but I'm not. I'm just a regular person that made an amazing amount of difference. Just those teeny tiny little steps. You do them enough over and over, they absolutely add up. They absolutely make a difference. So I know it's been a super, super, super long video today. Sorry, guys. I apologize. Well, I'm not that sorry. I am sorry that it went on for a bit, but I hope this helps. I hope this helps. And if you find that, let's say you try to very slowly reduce your pain medication, and especially if you're only just newly into keto or carnivore or even low carb, and you're still feeling incredible pain and perhaps inflammation, that's okay. That just means your body has more healing to do first. So keep taking the medications for now. And once you give yourself enough time to heal, then you can revisit. It doesn't mean you've failed. It does not mean you're doing carnivore wrong in any way. Okay? It doesn't mean any of that. It just means you've probably had years, perhaps decades of inflammation and pain because of the chronic crap we've been putting in our bodies. I'm 51. I'll be 52 this year, especially those of us over 40. Okay, we've had decades of crap in our bodies. So if it took us that long to reach the point of pain and inflammation, it's going to take a minute to reverse that. And that's totally okay. You know, it will still happen. We don't have to rush to make it happen at a certain time. I guess that's what I wanted to say. Anyways, guys, I appreciate so much your support, your encouragement, and the fact that you guys have stuck with this video for so long. Please leave comments. Please feel free to ask questions, share your stories. I always love hearing from you guys. I'm working on my website now. It should be up next week. I will be offering, now that I'm a certified nutrition and wellness coach, I'll be offering one-to-one coaching, group support. I'm going to be organizing some meetups and in-person events here in Colchester, hopefully in East London. And then I'm also looking to do some stuff in Canada when we go back again next. Not quite sure when that's going to be yet, but that's future dreams and plans. So thanks for your time. Thanks for listening to me. And I really appreciate everything you guys do. Your support is incredible. Your encouragement and sharing your stories. That's always, I always love to hear from you guys. See how you're doing, see what's happening. God is amazing, and He definitely wants to heal us with proper human nutrition. Thank you so much. I will see you guys soon in the next video. Bye for now.